1776, the Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia, and on the following day, 12 of the 13 colonies voted in favor of Richard Henry Lee's motion for independence. The delegates then spent the next 2 days debating the delegates then spent the next 2 days debating and revising the language of a statement drafted by Thomas Jefferson. On July 4th, Congress officially adopted the Declaration of Independence, and as a result, the date is celebrated as Independence Day. Nearly a month would go by, however, before the actual signing of the document took place first. New York delegates did not officially give their support until July 9th because their home assembly had not yet authorized them to vote in favor of independence. Next, it took 2 weeks for the declaration to be engrossed, written, which means written on parchment in a clear hand. Most of the delegates signed on August 2nd. So you had some of the quote unquote founding fathers who believed Independence Day should be August 2nd, but several signed on a later date. Two others, John Dickinson and Robert R. Livingston, never signed at all. The signed parchment copy now resides at the National Archives in the Rotunda for the Charters of Freedom, alongside the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Okay, so they have 9 facts dealing with this, dealing with the dealing with the Declaration of Independence. So check that out, okay, at history.com. All right, let's continue here. So also, speaking of the NFL, you have some NFL fans that are not too happy that the NFL is going to perform Lift Every Voice and Sing during the first week of NFL games. Thegrio.com has a good article.
What have I, or those I represent, to do with your...
Okay. Thegrio.com has a good article dealing with this. NFL fans threatened boycott over Black National. NFL fans threatened boycott over Black National Anthem. Now, the NFL once blackballed Colin Kaepernick for his national anthem stand, the article says. Now, after weeks of protests, after deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, and others, after these protests put race issues on the front burner, they seemingly want to bend over backwards to make amends. First, League Commissioner Roger Goodell responded to a video from several of the league's players asking him to unequivocally support Black Lives Matter. He did this. Let's keep in mind, let's be real. Black people are the product of the NFL. The NFL is like 70% African American. So they are the product. Okay. Then he said he supports any team that wants to sign Colin Kaepernick, despite the 4 years Colin Kaepernick has been absent from the league. Okay. Now, multiple reports suggest that the league will play Lift Every Voice and Sing, unofficially known as the Black National Anthem, before a preseason game. Predictably, that has some NFL fans upset. Hashtag boycott NFL was trending on Friday, July 3rd. And so you have people posting about this on social media. Hashtag boycott NFL. They don't like the Black National Anthem being played. I'm not sure what. Now, I wonder what percentage of these NFL players who don't like the Black National Anthem being played at an NFL game, I wonder what percent of them support Confederate monuments. Because you have to sit back, and a lot of these are probably Donald Trump supporters. But you have to ask yourself the question, wait a second. Why do you support Confederate monuments honoring traitors to the Union who took up arms against the Union, separated from the Union, and killed members of the Union Army and the Union military? Why do you support monuments honoring them, but you have a problem with Lift Every Voice and Sing being sung at an NFL game and 70% of the players are black. And James Weldon Johnson, who wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing, he wasn't trying to overthrow the government. So when you look at some of these arguments, you have to sit back and wonder, what the hell's wrong with these people? Now, let me see if I can get there, because the computer's freezing up. I'm going to try to close some of these tabs out. But Ted Cruz posted on Twitter, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. He posted on Twitter, he didn't like the idea. He said, how many national anthems are there? Things like this. See, a lot of this is once again, example of what happens when people are ignorant of history. And a lot of this has to do with being culturally insensitive. So as reported by Sports Illustrated, Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Chris Conley, who was among the team's players who led a peaceful protest walk through the city, took to Twitter to explain why he approved the league's move to acknowledge the African-American community and, by extension, its black players, who make up, according to the article, 75% of the league. Chris Conley said, quote, the league taking the opportunity to play Lift Every Voice and Sing, the Black National Anthem, is sweet. It's a great way to honor those who started this movement years ago. For those who, so Chris Conley went on to explain on Twitter, for those who aren't familiar with it, the song seeks to remind us of our past as a country and to strive to be better. It speaks to all of us, not just black people, even though it became a rallying cry for African Americans in the Jim Crow era. It is a beautiful message birthed from pain, end quote. So he went on to say, to those claiming the song is divisive, I ask which part? Much like America the Beautiful is played to honor, this song is the same. It isn't for just black people. It's for all who acknowledge the past and press toward a better future. Now, I'm not sure about that second part. When you study the history of Lift Every Voice and Sing, it was written by James Weldon Johnson in 1899. James Weldon Johnson was asked to write he was asked to give a speech on Lincoln's birthday in 1900, the year 1900. So you're going into a new century, and he wrote a poem that started with the words Lift Every Voice and Sing. And basically, when he described what happened, he's basically saying the ancestors, something to the effect that the ancestors were speaking to him, because 1899 was 4 years after Frederick Douglass passes away. Frederick Douglass passes away in 1895. You still have former slaves who are alive in 1899. 1899 is also 4 years after the Plessy versus Ferguson U.S. Supreme Court case. Okay, separate but equal. And you're going into a new century with all these hopes and aspirations of achieving real freedom, and African Americans having all of their rights and things like this. So when he described the writing process of it, he basically said something to the effect that the ancestors were speaking to him, and he wrote out their words and their pain, etc., their experiences. We look at Harriet Tubman didn't die in 1913. Booker T. Washington didn't die in 1915. So you have former slaves who were still alive in 1899, 1900. So when I see something like this, right now, some of these very same people who have a problem with Lift Every Voice and Sing being performed, so almost 100% of those people will say what happened to George Floyd was wrong. But oh, what happened to George Floyd was wrong, and he should not have been treated like that. And it was it's an abomination. All types of stuff like this, right? But then you don't have a problem with the white national anthem being played at an NFL game, and 70% of the players are black, or according to this article from the Griot, 75% of the players are black. You've heard me call it the white national anthem before. Why do I call it the white? Why do you call it the white national anthem, Michael Imhotep? Well, who wrote it? It was written September 13th, 1814 by Francis Scott Key. Francis Scott Key was a white supremacist slave owner. When did he write it? During the War of 1812. And a lot of people talk about the third stanza. No refuge for the hireling or the slave. It ain't the third stanza. That's the problem. Is the entire song is the problem. The entire song is a white supremacist song. When you actually understand the history of it and who wrote it. And then not only that, so 3 weeks before, so this takes place. Originally, the Star Spangled Banner was called the Defense of Fort McHenry, because this took place in Baltimore, if I remember correctly, Baltimore. The defense of Fort McHenry there in Baltimore. The British are attacking this fort. Francis Scott Key is on a ship. Okay, he witnesses the attack from a distance, and the flag was still standing the next morning. All right, so he writes this poem, and it later becomes a song. Music is added to it, becomes a song. It becomes adopted as the white national anthem. 3 weeks before that, at the Battle of Brandenburg, if I remember correctly, Battle of Brandenburg, Francis Scott Key and his troops got their behinds kicked by the Colonial Marines. The Colonial Marines was a British regiment of former black slaves, runaway slaves, things like this. And because you had, so slavery still going on at this time, 1814, right? This is the United States fighting against Great Britain again, the Great Britain they separated from during the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. So the British said, the British put the word out, if you come to the slaves still in the U.S., if you come fight for us, when this is over with, we'll set you free. That's the same thing they said during the American Revolutionary War. So we were born at night, not last night. When you study American Revolutionary War, there were more African people fighting on the side of the British than the colonies. Because the British were the first ones to say, when this war is over with, if you come fight for us, we'll set you free when this war is over. So we wanted to be free. And we fought for our freedom. So at the end of the War of 1812, ends in 1814. The U.S., there were about 6,000 runaway slaves that go fight on the British side. The U.S. demanded that Great Britain return to them their runaway slaves. Great Britain said no. Thankfully, they said no. So when you study the history of this, there's a reason why I call it the white national anthem. I don't understand why it's performed at the NFL games in the first place. The problem is not Lift Every Voice and Sing being performed the national anthem. The problem is, why the hell are you performing the national anthem at the NFL games? This is not a federal event. This is not U.S. Army versus U.S. Navy. But okay, that's how you want to do it. So let's see what happens with this. Well, first of all, we got to see if there's going to be NFL season at all, because coronavirus is spreading. Like hard times. You remember the song "Hard Times"? Spreading just like the flu. Watch out, homeboy! Don't let it catch you. If we look at the coronavirus update, the 7-day national average, 7-day average case total in the U.S. sets record for 27th straight day. In May, people was talking about people on social media posting pictures of their masks on the ground and saying it's over, all this stuff. I said, you're a damn fool. I said, no, it's not. It ain't over. Local officials in states with surging coronavirus cases issued dire warnings Sunday, July 5th, 2020, about the spread of infections, blaming outbreaks in their communities on early reopenings and saying the virus was rapidly outpacing containment efforts. I thought all this stuff was contained. I thought we had it up against the ropes, like Ali against George Foreman. On the other side of the break, you listen to the African History Network show. We'll continue this. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, July 5th, 2020, and we are live. We're broadcasting on our social media platforms, our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. And so you can watch us there. We have all these shows archived on my social media platforms. Also an audio from Stitcher, Tunes, Castbox, Acast. Search for The African History Network Show, The African History Network Show. And if you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on the listen to podcasts. It takes you to our Blog Talk Radio page where we have about 1,000 podcasts going back to 2010. Okay. I'll be uploading some more this week. Okay, so on YouTube, we have VC, we have Jessica, Valerian, Lynn, Shani B, Syed, Erie Blackfire, Fly Girl, Debbie Canty, Demetrius, Mike. Just a few of the people watching us on our YouTube channel. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about coronavirus. Coronavirus is spreading out of control. This is by nowhere over. We're at about 2.8 million cases, almost 130,000 deaths. We're on pace to be at by the end of September. We're on pace pretty much to be at about 200,000 deaths. Okay, I'm just want to warn y'all right now. The other thing important to understand. The Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 lasted 3 years. It's 1918, 1919, 1920. It killed 675,000 Americans. I ain't trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying, you study history so you don't make the same mistakes over and over again. We had an incompetent president then also, who was somewhat incompetent, Woodrow Wilson. So, it killed 50 million people worldwide. Well, if you look at the updates from the Washington Post, coronavirus, Washington Post has some really good coronavirus updates. I read it every day, Washington Post as well as New York Times and NBC News. Local officials in states with surging coronavirus cases issued dire warnings Sunday, July 5th, 2020, about the spread of infections, blaming outbreaks in their communities on early reopenings and saying the virus was rapidly outpacing containment efforts. Judge Lena Hidalgo, Democrat, the top elected official in Harris County, Texas, said, "We don't have the room to experiment. We don't have room for incrementalism when we're seeing these kinds of numbers." Now, Harris County, Texas encompasses the sprawling Houston, Texas metro area. Judge Lena Hidalgo went on to say, quote, "Nor should we wait for all the hospital beds to fill and all these people to die before we take drastic action," end quote. And then you look at Donald Trump with his Mamor event. Most of the people there not wearing masks, not practicing social distancing. He had the Tulsa rally. Same thing there. That was indoors. That's even worse. Outside, a little better, but you still have to practice social distancing and wear masks. Did you hear that Mr. 999 Herman Cain got coronavirus? He went to that Tulsa rally. There's a bunch of Negroes up in there. Hopefully they're all right. Herman Cain ran for, remember Herman Cain ran for president, Mr. 999. He had to be hospitalized with coronavirus. Bless his little heart. I hope he's all right. I'm telling you. I'm telling you right now. Coronavirus gonna whip some ass. I'm telling you. So, yeah. So, you know, part of me, right? Part of me says, I've said this before. Why y'all trying to keep them from going up in there with no mask? Let them going up in there. Yeah. Now the CDC warned you about this. Dr. Anthony Fauci warned you about this. You want to go up in there anyway? Okay. You want to sign a little waiver? Okay. And waive your rights to sue the Trump campaign, or if you get coronavirus, you're going up into a super spreader event. You're going up into a super spreader event. Okay. So if you get coronavirus, you brought this on yourself. I mean, so the rolling 7-day average for, now some people will say, well, you ain't supposed to say stuff like that. Well, you knew who I was when you tuned into the show. I mean, what do you want me to say? I say, you go, they told you don't go. The local officials are saying don't have the event. They're saying it's going to spread coronavirus. A lot of these places like Tulsa, Oklahoma already had an increase. They're saying, please don't do this. And they do it anyway, and you go up in there. So what the hell do you think was going to happen? No. Okay. Now Trump get tested every day. Now look at this. Look at the hypocrisy. Trump doesn't wear a mask, but he gets tested every day. You got people in Arizona in cars for 9 hours, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours waiting to get a test. In Arizona, they're telling the people when they have the test, you come in your car, you're in line for hours. They're telling the people ahead of time, come with a full tank of gas, come in a car that has air conditioning. You're going to be here for a long time. How is it that Trump doesn't wear a mask, but he gets a coronavirus test every day? This is the same fool who said everybody who wants a test gets a test. He didn't tell you how long you're going to have to wait in line to get a test. Then he's going to be irresponsible and hold an event like this that all the doctors, all the officials are saying is going to spread coronavirus. So if you take your ass up in there, well, what do you think was going to happen? So the rolling 7-day average for daily new cases in the United States reached a record high for the 27th day in a row, climbing to 48,606 on Sunday, July 5th, 2020, according to the Washington Post tracking. Coronavirus-related hospitalizations rose to the highest levels to date in Arizona and Nevada. Let me repeat this for you. I just want people to understand. Maybe you could talk some sense into some of these Donald Trump supporters. The rolling 7-day average for daily new cases in the United States reached a record high for the 27th day in a row. Are you tired of winning? Are you tired of winning yet? You remember 2016, Donald Trump said, we're going to have so many wins. He said, you're going to say, Mr. Trump, I'm tired of winning. If you standing in the food line because you lost your job, and you voted for Trump, are you tired of winning yet? I know you probably didn't foresee something like this happening. I told you he was unqualified. I told you he was a fool. I told you he was totally unqualified to be president. The rolling 7-day average for daily new coronavirus cases in the United States reached a record high for the 27th day in a row, climbing to 48,606 on Sunday, July 5th, 2020, according to the Washington Post tracking. Coronavirus-related hospitalizations rose to their highest levels to date in Arizona and Nevada. Now, Donald Trump likes to talk about records in the stock market. Why doesn't he talk about these records? I find that very interesting. Coronavirus-related hospitalizations in California's Los Angeles County have increased by 32% in 3 weeks as the number of daily cases trend upward. The full state of California has reported a record 7-day average of cases for 19 straight days. New Jersey's Governor Phil Murphy, Democrat, whose state was battered by coronavirus in April, called for a national mask wearing requirement. The University of Washington reported that at least 121 students have tested positive for coronavirus and that 112 of them lived in fraternity houses near the Seattle campus. Now, you have a lot of schools contemplating whether or not to open back up in the fall, things like this. We haven't even seen the worst yet. This ain't even the second wave, and the virus has mutated. This is another thing. They talked about this past week. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, I think it was Dr. Sanjay Gupta on MSNBC. The virus has mutated, and it's easier to catch it now. This is what happens when you have somebody incompetent as president. This is an example. Doesn't take responsibility for when things go wrong. Try to take responsibility for stuff that President Barack Obama did. Doesn't give him credit. Lies on President Obama. All this. I mean, oh, okay. So the University of Washington, I saw an article from yahoonews.com about this. The fraternity members of fraternities there getting coronavirus. The University of Washington reported that at least 121 students have tested positive for the virus and that 112 of them lived in fraternity houses near the Seattle campus. The university's medical school has erected a pop-up testing site near the school's Greek Row. Now, I've been in the fraternity 30 years. Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. I'm telling you right now, if the men in the fraternity got coronavirus, it could very well be a lot of women on campus that have coronavirus also. I'm just saying. Now, frustration about the pandemic response has mounted among local leaders who say they have had to grapple with conflicting orders and frequently changing guidelines from governors and the White House as they try to curb sharply rising infections. After the state of Texas reported another single-day record for new coronavirus cases over the weekend, Austin, Texas Mayor Steve Adler, who's a Democrat, told CNN State of the Union that there won't be enough medical personnel to keep up with the spike in cases if the rate of increase continued unabated in his city. He said, quote, "If we don't change this trajectory, then I'm within 2 weeks of having our hospitals overrun," end quote. He went on to add that intensive care units in the city could be overflowing within 10 days. Now, this is in Austin, Texas. He said he was not sure that Texas needed a statewide shelter-in-place order, but that he wanted the authority to impose one locally. Now, Houston, Texas Mayor Sylvester Turner, who's African-American, Sylvester Turner is a Democrat. He echoed Mayor Steve Adler's concerns. Mayor Steve Adler is the mayor of Austin, Texas. The hospitals in Houston, Texas face staffing shortages as demand for ICU beds, intensive care unit beds, increases exponentially. Houston, Texas Mayor Sylvester Turner said on CBS News, Face the Nation. Houston, Texas Mayor Sylvester Turner said, quote, "In fact, if we don't get our hands around this virus quickly, In about 2 weeks, our hospital system could be in serious trouble. Demand for testing has also outstripped the city's capacity, Houston, Texas Mayor Sylvester Turner said. And the positivity rate has soared from 10% a month ago to 25% recently. They're not having this because of more testing. They're having more cases because it's spreading faster. The infection rate is increasing. What the hell do you have to lose? In an interview with ABC News this week, Judge Lena Hidalgo said she had been stripped of authority to issue stay-at-home orders in Harris County, Texas, as she did in the early days of the outbreak, after Governor Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, Republican